Just one moment.
Thank you, Brandon. Yep. Okay, once you get that iPad.
Yep, and run it over yet.
All right, we are live now.
Thank you.
It's Tuesday, November 15th. This is the Mid-Continent Public Library Building Committee meeting. I am Brent Chandamar, Chair. I'm going to ask staff to do I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to ask staff for a roll call.
Brent,
Here.
Joycelyn. Here. Michael. Michelle.
Here.
Ron.
So I'm the chair is going to declare that there's a quorum present, just to sort of let you know. Michelle, we're going to show some things on the screen, and when you get here, we can re-show them so you can sort of see them and have the benefit of them. So knowing that you're driving, I don't want to say anything that's upsetting, but you know there'll be some documents to do. So the primary, well, we have the agenda, so it's in front of us. So a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay. Can you second that, Michelle?
Yep, I can second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
No.
I appreciate the shorter agenda.
All right, it's a very short agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, aye. It's approved. Next item, we have the minutes from our October meeting. Always appreciate staff time and effort to prepare these things because 12 pages, it looks like we talked a lot.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Michelle?
I said, oh, aye. Sorry, I'm getting through the black hole on 210. I may drop off and have to call back on again.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Michelle, let me give you kind of like a preview of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about East Independence. We got a guaranteed maximum price. We've got numbers to share. We've got the discussion that we're going to go through. Through some thoughtful considerations with fellow board members, I think the plan is to delay a final vote on it until prior to December 14th, so some additional information can be gathered and some information prepared for that. And the significance of the December 14th is that's prior to December 17th, which is when the guaranteed maximum bids expire. So we'll be representing this actually at the full board meeting. So to the degree that you don't see it or don't get it, you'll see it and very soon. So anyway, wanted to let you know about that. And so if you have trouble tracking I don't want you to be looking at the presentation and driving, but I want to let you know what it is that we're about at the committee meeting level. So that sound okay to you?
Yep, that's great.
Okay, go. All right. So I'm going to ask staff to call up the East Independence GMP document, and then we're going to go through this by just general way of context. Why are we doing East Independence? We're doing East Independence because back in November 2016, we went to the public and said, it's called Proposition L. One of the buildings that was in the plan that was presented to the public would be a new service location in East Independence. That measure passed, and we spent the next 6 years going through and working on the capital plan and capital program, and we're kind of nearing the end. And as we're nearing the end, there's two really outstanding major projects. One is East Independence, which was always in the capital plan, and the other one was Riverside, which was in the capital plan, but as we talked about it and we worked on it, it's become something different then, and we pulled it out of the capital plan and we moved it to the bottom so that we could sort of work through the other sort of things. So as a reminder, everybody, there may be some people online. We have a guaranteed maximum price. The advantage of that is, and I always give this hypothetical example, if the guaranteed maximum price is $5 million and it comes in at 5.2, our general contractor is at risk for the additional $200,000. If it comes in at 5.7, we get the benefit of the savings. And honestly, there have been some examples where it is that we realize savings on different sort of projects. So it's not like the contractor goes in, well, let me see what I can get to get the maximum dollar. So it's been a very productive relationship. It's been a very valuable relationship. And even more so as we reached a time and period of changing cost, hyperinflation within construction industry, materials and supply chain challenges. And so if we were just starting fresh on a new project and we haven't had the experience together, so we've learned together, we've grown together, the East Independence project to make it affordable, particularly within our proposed capital budget, we downsized it, and we've downsized it in a significant sort of fashion, but we also downsized it. I'll get to the point here, guys, in a minute. But we downsized it to the extent that in some senses it was a really practical, functional library, because we also understood how to use space differently as we've gone through and looked at buildings so that we could provide a level of service to the public with less square footage and construction costs as an associated cost per square foot. So I met with Jake, just in full disclosure, last week to get the guaranteed maximum price. So, sorry to, I've had a peek at it all, and I came with some trepidation because, it's a hard environment, and how do you know, and what does it look like? And, what's the price of eggs and milk related to construction material, and what might that come back in? And I was anticipating a number that was higher than actually came in. So let's go to the next slide. As a reminder, this is what the rendering is. I think Brad McKenzie is online. We've seen the concept and what it is that it looks like. The other slide shows the locations. This is a new unit of service added to Mid-Continent Public Library. And so that's important to note for other reasons, because there's attendant operational costs of running a new library, but we're here to talk about trying to build the new library today. Next slide. Here is some of what I shared kind of a little bit verbally. One consideration of this, and you'll see it in the next slide. So do you mind going to the next slide? I worked with Jake on this just to sort of let you know. So if it doesn't make sense, it's my fault. It's not Jake's fault. I took the approach that the cost of the building for the constructing of it all was two things. It was the cost of the building and it was the cost of the land. If you think about if you're buying a house, when you buy the house, you're buying both the house and the land. And if the realtor just told you, here's what the house cost, and then came back and said, oh, by the way, the land costs this, you would say, well, you didn't tell me what the full price was. So the reason why this is significant and important, you can sort of see if you look in Michelle, I'm going to try to describe this for you all. The budget for East Independence in 2020 was $6.2 million. The guaranteed maximum price which we received was $6,549,810. So there's some price increase in that. Our budget had $750,000 for land. Understand we did a land swap with Lane 4 for our unused property at Redbridge, and it was an underutilized asset. We potentially could have sold it, but our experience has been our old buildings have been on the market for some time, and we've not necessarily realized the value that we thought that we had. So it was a straight up swap. We swapped Redbridge for this new site. And it's not just that the site was a good swap, but the site's a good location. So that's an important thing to say. So you could have a trade, but the trade wouldn't necessarily say, well, we're at some place that nobody's going to be able to find. Nobody knows where that is. When I've talked with people in the community about this project, I say, oh, I know where that is. Could you just say it's opposite the corner restaurant? It has a light there and it's opposite there. So it was a good trade in terms of the location for us, a good trade for us in terms of the value of it all. So when you add the budget of East Independence and the land, back in 2020, it was $6,950,000. Let's call that $7 million. When you go to the guaranteed maximum price, which is in front of us, it's 6.6. So anyway, because of the land transaction and the savings that we had there, we are $400,000 less on the East Independence project than what we otherwise would have. And that's the advantage, and it clearly shows in the math, if you would, the value of the land swap and making the project affordable. I talked with Michael Lazio about this presentation. Michael is out of the country on an international trip, and Michael say, well, what's Green Valley doing in there? And I said, well, this was a price comparison. So what does East Independence cost relative to Green Valley, which is our most recent sort of project? And so if you look at Green Valley, I'm just going to look at the guaranteed maximum price. And that project is underway because we were all out there on a windy day recently breaking ground, and the community was excited about it all. That project came in at 6.9 million. So I'm comparing our most recent project, 6.9. These are similar square footage, unless somebody wants to correct me. 6.9 for Green Valley, and East Independence is 6.6. So East Independence costs less than the Green Valley, and that's a real function of the land swap and the savings that we realized there. Understand we actually had a very good land transaction involving Green Valley. We publicly thanked them when we were with them on Friday, and you can sort of see what that is. So to be honest with you, my fear, I was going to come in here and Jake was going to say, well, here's the good news, bad news sort of deal. And the bad news was going to be some number that was going to be, had a 7 in front of it. So when this came in at this sort of price, this seemed an exciting moment. Favorable. Thank you, Susan. So anyway, and these are things that we're going to present to the full board. I happened to be at the Finance Committee meeting yesterday, and there was some interest and some concern about having a little bit more time. So if we go to the next slide, these are some of the things that go into the guaranteed maximum price. We've sort of shared these a little bit more. Next slide. I asked the question of Jake. I said, so it's kind of an economist calls it the opportunity cost. What's the cost of if you do it today or if you delay it to another day? And so Jake came up with the 8%. And so you can see the math there. So if we delay from starting this in 2022, 1 year, Jake's estimate was 8%. If you do another year, it's another 8%. If you do it the third year, it's 6%. And so you can see how that sort of compounds, for now. So relative to that, let me pause there and see if anybody wants to add to, correct, or amend what it is that I've droned on about so far. Okay.
I'm very encouraged by the fact that our bids came in $100,000 under, and I would hate to see us waste it by waiting.
Okay.
The number is not going to get smaller.
Okay. And that is a point we're going to talk about here shortly. So I don't know, is there another slide?
No, that's the last.
Oh,
The
so anyway, let me come back to that for a second. So Cody, if you can back up one, there's something in that same item called Green Valley, and I'm hoping you could pop that up. I've not had a chance to talk with our friends at J.E. Dunn, our SAP, about it all, but I found this really, really helpful in a previous discussion we had. Here's copies that could be shared. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'd actually had saved this presentation and I was able to find it on my home computer this afternoon. So if you go to the second slide, this was done by, I think, our friends at Dunn. They looked at an industry source to be able to do that. And then if you go, just go to the next slide, Cody. They had done some analysis really about Green Valley, and then they also included East Independence. but the concern is that it's a dynamic market. And if you go to the next slide, that's the escalation impact. This was very helpful, I think, in our understanding about moving ahead and proceeding with the Green Valley project, because if we waited, you know, that we would incur additional costs and don't have any particular advantage because we would have the cost and not any, we'd have to downsize the building even more to stay within budget. And then the next slide is their escalation for East Independence. So like I said, not had a chance to talk with our partners in our building capital improvement program, but because the 8% for 1 year out and the 8% for 2 years out, and Jim, I'm looking at you, and the 6% for 3 years out might be solid numbers, but is there a way to go back in and update particularly the analysis so that we can understand what the potential impact of cost inflation might be if we don't undertake the project at the guaranteed maximum price?
Yeah, we could.
And it's gonna be similar to that. I mean, it's a little crystal ball-y right now, but Jake's numbers are, I think, in the right ballpark. You know, typically when we started this program, it was in that 3 to 4% per year. We obviously had the craziness through 2020 when the market was really out of whack and we had some as high as 15. I think 8 per year for the next couple of years is an okay number to use, but we can dump into that same chart.
That would be good.
Okay.
So it's not that you got the right answer anymore. You have to prove your work, okay? So anyway, so that's what we're sort of looking for. So that's one thing that we really need for this document. So, and presenting it to the board, the sooner you can get that, Jim, the better, because that would be information that we would present in a special meeting that we have. The other thing I realized in discussion with others, there's been significant number of new board members on, and so they might not understand Eastern Independence, why it is that we need a branch. And so I committed to work with staff to sort of go back in. 2020 census has come out since we previously did an analysis. Stunning development. Independence had first growth in probably 40 or 50 years. You know, one has a view about where that growth might be, but what does that look like so that we can, you know, show and demonstrate the fact that, you know, that there's a justification, there's a service void in that particular area. So I've talked with staff about doing that. I will be back over here tomorrow to work with staff, because what you want to do in their retirement, but, you know, dig in and do this work. And in some senses, it's really important because in some ways, there's some anxiousness about where we are. There's some anxiousness really around our capital budget. I should state my public value is, and frankly, I said this actually at the groundbreaking in Grand Valley, is that we have a social contract with the voters who in November of 2016 said yes. And I thought about it in a new way. There was the number, and I got it here. Do you think I know about 221,482 people voted yes. And that seemed like a big number, particularly when I looked at, that's the number of people who live in Des Moines, Iowa, all of Des Moines, Iowa, adults from 0 to 101. And these were just registered voters. These were people who are 18 years or older who happened to show up on election day, and not only showed up on election day, but said yes. So anyway, but we want to be able to go in. I think this is an important exercise for the board to do together. I think cohesiveness really around understanding why we're making decisions is really, really important. So that's why the motion is to delay it so that the additional staff work can be done really on the cost escalation. So we have a second outside opinion on the cost escalation to go back and update and revise the numbers on the census and other data that might have to sort of show the development growth. Actually, I saw Michelle
Okay,
through the corner of my eye.
here she is.
Michelle, how
Hi.
are you? So we're going to pause and let you settle in and get a cup of coffee. And
You're good.
you know, I thought we might need more time, you know, so that's why I put it at 3:30, and we're gonna have a break, you know, before a 5 o'clock meeting. But
Work is just inconvenient.
no, that's quite all right. I understand that. So Michelle, in summary, we just thought we would have a special meeting in December so that we could do some additional,
Right.
reconfirm what we think construction cost escalations might be, update the numbers really around population and demographics for the location that we have in mind, because 2020 census data has come out, particularly in light of new board members who may not have been around when we've talked about it. You know, why do we need a branch there? Why this particular sort of location? And try to organize that all. The motion, which will, ask the committee members to consider, says before December 14th. The reason why it's December 14th is that the guaranteed maximum price holds until December 17th. So we wanted to try to organize a timely decision. So if we wanted to proceed, we would have the benefit of the guaranteed maximum price.
Brent, in anticipation of having that timely decision, are we going to kind of flesh this out enough tonight so that we know all the questions to answer before that special meeting?
When we're gathered with our colleagues, that would be something that I ask. You don't want to have the experience of, well, I want to know this, and
Yes.
and so I would ask, that if anybody had questions that they want answered, that they try to get them to us no later than a week from today. And honestly, in some cases, there's some questions for which there isn't a really factual answer. So if the question is, if you put a new library in there, how does that affect patron patterns of where they go now? I mean, will they shift from this location to a new location, or will bringing on a new service location increase overall demand? Actually, I had a quick conversation with Jim Staley this afternoon. The experience of Lee Summit can be a little bit informative about what does the new location does. Does it just reallocate, N, which was the same, or does it result in greater library usage among the community? I think he also had some perspective on, on Whitney. And so part of it is that, we want to understand what we're doing. We understand why it is that we're doing it, and we want to understand the level of investment. The other part of it is the reason for the pause is that we have a solvable problem, but we have a problem which is a liquidity problem, and the liquidity problem is our investments are tied up with the maturity that doesn't match up how it is that we potentially would incur the bills to our. So how do you address that? And we want to give the finance committee a chance to sort of think about it. I laid out 4 or 5 different options up there. That's just me thinking by myself over too many cups of coffee. But staff might have some perspective. Because part of it is that when will the bills be occurred? When will the investments mature and be available, and how do those match up? And what it is that looks like. And that's just not work that's been done at this point, but would be helpful to know at this point. So yesterday at the finance committee meeting, Cody, can you go back to the one slide that had the escalations in the other presentation? Right there. One more. Yeah. So it was said in passing, and additional staff work needs to be done to do this. You might lose $200,000 in investments because we would pay them prior to maturity and they wouldn't be at par, and consequently you would take a loss. Well, if that's what it is, when I look at if the cost escalation is $523,000, there's still a net savings by saving on what it is the potential there's a cost. But the other probably more appropriate question is, you wouldn't necessarily have to liquidate or sell the investments all at the same time because the bill doesn't all occur in the same time, and the bills occur really over a 6 to 9 month period. And so could you look at that and so understand that in a greater level of detail?
One detail that might be helpful is what has been the overall gain from those investments. to have some kind of perspective on what that would mean.
And Juan can answer that, but we're restricted by Missouri law into kind of pretty safe investments. And so,
Yes, yeah. We have restricted investments, and also we have an investment policy.
Right.
Federal and, federal agency funds, agency bills, treasury bills, and very few Missouri municipal bonds, and plus CDs.
But I guess my point more specifically is if we've made, I'm just going to throw out a number. If we've made 2 million investing the funds, and by calling it an early, we lose 200,000. I'm just using those numbers. Then there's still a net gain of 1.2. It's not, we haven't lost money in a way.
my response, there's a couple of forms of investments. There's the investment proceeds that we have from our bonds, and then there's the investment of our undesignated fund balance. And so just understanding that level of detail. So while there might be a desire and anxiousness, well, let's get after it and let's get sort of going. It's hard for when you get it, and we talk about it as a building committee the same day as the board meeting, to kind of get a set of factual information so that we understand it, and we all can advance a conjecture or point of view that upon further examination was other than or different than what we all sort of might have imagined. So that's why we want to understand the timing of the maturity of the payments with a possible expectation of when the invoices might be incurred. That's one sort of exercise. And if there is a gap, which we know there is a gap, what are the options about how to do that? And then the second one, what's the potential economic cost of delaying the project? And that's the assignment that we've given to Jade.
Right.
So I've said about all that I want to say. So if you want to go back to the motion. And I think the red in there is my highlighting. Michelle, I took your counsel and advice. I sent this to Ron this afternoon when I thought about it some more, because this emerged out of the finance committee meeting yesterday. I also sent this to Gordon Cook, who sort of raised the concern. And actually, Gordon and I had a conversation earlier this afternoon about what the intent was. And I heard directly from Gordon, who was supportive of it. I suspect you'll hear that in the board meeting. I explained the reason why it's the 14th, because it's prior to the expiration of the guaranteed bill. And Ron was here at the finance committee meeting yesterday. So this is a substitute, if you would, for what was the motion. The other, if you looked at the board docs a couple of days, it'd say approval. And so this says we'll deal with it as described there.
Sounds good. So, well, I need to.
One of you probably should make a motion.
Somebody needs to make a motion, somebody needs to second it. And before you do that, you guys can either discuss a date, or you guys can have that conversation as the full board. You can throw out a suggested date and see.
Well, it's
and it
like
can always be altered.
prior to,
Yeah.
so I just suggest I don't want to have the discussion here. There's only
No.
three of us.
Right. But in a full board, we can.
So
Perfect. Lord.
Well, I like to make a motion for approval for recommendation from the building committee to the full board to hold a special meeting prior to December 14th to accept work package 13, guaranteed maximum price of $6,549,810 to be paid from the capital projects fund, and approval authorizing staff to draft a notice to proceed. I read that out loud because there are people listening online. So they know exactly what the motion is.
All right, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
we've discussed it enough.
I think it's an important conversation to have. because we do have that social contract. And I think that any deviation from that needs to be fully vetted and fully vetted in an open, very transparent.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All those abstaining? I'm going to count myself on the ayes, okay. All right, and this is what we're going to take to the full board. I probably won't go in to this level of detail because in some senses there's additional work that needs to be done, and we've got lots of items on the agenda that are consequential. I don't want to take away from those conversations, but I appreciate the time. We've got some more time. I might ask Jake if he has updates on any of the other projects. I'm interested, particularly because Michelle's here hearing about Antioch.
North Oak is pushing right along. We've got it pretty much sheathed, and it looks like a really nice building now. And so it's been pretty neat to see over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. They've just, the structural steel went up, the sheathing went around. They've got a asphalt, just a little bit of asphalt in the parking lot. Pretty exciting.
Every Tuesday in the dark. It's my daughter dances.
In the dark. In the dark.
Well,
And
look
it's
at the
really in the
lights.
dark now.
It's very much in the dark now, but no, I see it as I just having a conversation with somebody about it yesterday. Because she was asking about it, and I was like, did you not notice it's like farther back? And I had to explain why and all that stuff. Well, I mean, people are definitely taking notice, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is further back, but they did that for a couple of reasons. First of all, get a little more parking. But second of all,
Right.
they're going to put a monument sign out there as well, so it's going to be a lot easier to see.
Well, and then hopefully we won't sink. That's important. So perfect.
And anticipated completion date?
I believe we're looking at May or June of 2023.
Can't wait.
All right. I just don't, we're not Antioch.
Close enough. I knew what you,
Well,
I think I knew what you were talking
I knew what I meant, but I found myself sometimes calling these independent. I have to
Oh,
watch
exciting.
myself. So anyway, Jake, any updates on any other of the building projects?
Green Valley is, they're getting ready to put them on grade. I think they got a little bit of a delay for some weather on both Friday and of course today. But they're moving right along with that too. And that was looking, I'm hoping that we're going to be in there by the end of summer of 2023, but I think that might be pushing it. So we might really be closer to September of 2023 before we get into Green Valley.
Okay. Any other questions of our staff?
Amazing job of keeping us on track and keeping the projects going and keeping them within budget. It's an amazing job.
Just a quick comment. This was also shared at the Finance Committee meeting yesterday. They looked at a quick view of the 5-year maintenance budget, and in some ways the numbers were a little larger than because some understanding that we had deferred, particularly roofs, as we've gone along in touching the sort of buildings. And so that's going to be another conversation about how it is that we, budget for and maintain a reserve fund so that we can do timely and appropriate maintenance on it. So I'm counting time, but so if someone wants to adjourn the meeting.
Oh my God. I guess,
We don't have any visitors.
no visitors? No visitors. To adjourn?
I will second that.